12 insane mega flash floods caught on camera. Are you ready to witness the raw power of nature in action? Hold on to your seats because we're taking you on a journey to explore the most incredible mega flash floods caught on camera. From surging waves that swallow entire cities to devastating deluges that leave destruction in their wake. These 12 insane flash floods will leave you in awe, so let's get started. The tremendous flood waves racing towards them were genuinely terrifying. As the water got stronger and more merciless, people could feel its full force. Before they knew it, the water had grown so strong that they had to flee for their lives. The water stream was so powerful that it swept away everything in its path, including massive trees, leaving witnesses in awe of its power and terrified of what it could do to them. People rapidly recognized they needed to get to higher land to avoid the roaring flood waters. It was a race against time as they desperately sought cover and safety. The flood level rose further, threatening to destroy everything in its path. Fortunately, everyone made it to safety. The sight of floodwater serves as a stark reminder of nature's destructive force. It serves as a sad reminder that no one's immune to nature's forces and that we must constantly be prepared for the worst. A terrible flood that had invaded the street and was sweeping automobiles away like toys. The flow was so powerful that the cars couldn't compete with it. People could only watch in fear as their automobiles were swept away by the rushing current. As the flood continued, the streets became swamped. Those who were unable to relocate their automobiles quickly enough were forced to abandon them when the water level increased. Others tried valiantly to push their cars to higher ground, but it was nearly an impossible task. The water's strength was scary, and those unfortunate enough to be in its path could only hope for a miracle. It was a heartbreaking sight to see, and many who witnessed it will remember it for a long time. The once calm river began to swell and rage as the rain continued to fall, its banks overflowing and bringing a flood of water pouring towards the city. People watched in fear as massive floods rushed over the bridge, the waves huge and the current strong. The city's backbone, the bridge, was now in dire danger of crumbling due to the huge strain. The city was in a frenzy as people rushed to higher ground to escape the swelling floodwaters. The water had already reached the first streets and the sense of dread was obvious. Will the bridge hold up? Would the city be destroyed? These were the thoughts of everyone as they waited for the storm to pass. The town was nestled peacefully in the valley, surrounded by lush forests and rolling hills. But that peace was shattered one day as a gigantic flash flood swept down from the mountains, carrying with it a huge amount of wood and debris from the forest. The water was dark and murky, full of mud and churning with fury. As the floodwaters entered the town, the residents watched in terror as the waves grew higher and higher, crashing against buildings and sweeping away everything in their path. The once calm streets were now raging rivers, and the people could hear the roar of the water as it surged forward, relentless and unforgiving. Houses were torn apart and trees uprooted. The town was in chaos, and the people were frantically trying to reach safety. Mothers clutched their young children, fathers carried their elderly parents, and everyone was running for their lives. The town was at the mercy of the flood, and the people could only pray that it would pass quickly and spare them from further destruction. But the waves were so furious and the water so powerful that it seemed like the whole city was at risk of being swept away. The bridge was a symbol of strength and resilience, standing tall over the river for decades. But one day a furious flood came with so much pressure that it pushed the whole bridge with its flow. The water was raging, the waves growing higher and higher with each passing moment. People gathered on the banks of the river, watching in horror as the bridge was pushed and pulled by the relentless floodwaters. The once sturdy structure groaned and creaked under the immense pressure, and the people held their breaths, praying that it would hold. But it was not to be. In just a few short moments, the whole bridge disappeared into the water, swallowed up by the raging flood. The people watched in disbelief as the river claimed what had once been a symbol of their strength and resilience. The bridge was gone, but the memory of its destruction would stay with the people forever. They would never forget the power of the flood, and the reminder of how small and insignificant they were in the face of nature's wrath. The people would rebuild, but they would always be humbled by the memory of the bridge and the flood. A giant flood swept through the city, devouring the Grand Hotel in its path. Guests scrambled to escape while onlookers watched in disbelief as the once luxurious hotel disappeared into the water. The sound of the rushing flood echoed through the city, reminding all the destructive power of nature. The Grand Hotel was lost, its memory now a testament to the overwhelming power of floods. The tranquil beauty of the settlement, surrounded by lush forests and undulating hills, was well known. However, on one fatal day, a flash flood came through, bringing with it massive trees from the forest. The flood caught the people of the village off guard, sweeping away homes, automobiles, and everything in its path. The once sturdy fence was no match for the surging floods, and it was rapidly breached, allowing the floods to sweep into the village's core. As the water surged higher and higher, people raced for their lives, clutching to one another in terror. The roar of nature's anger filled the air as the sound of the flowing river echoed throughout the streets. Homes were demolished, and automobiles were flung around like toys. In a matter of minutes, the once peaceful village was transformed into a seat of mayhem and ruin. On a tragic day, the water breached the gate and flooded the city, bringing a wave of disaster with it. The metropolis was no match for the flood's relentless power, which washed away everything in its path. People tried to flee for their lives, but the water was too swift and powerful. It swept them away like insects, leaving a path of destruction in its wake. As the flood raged on, the streets were filled with rushing water and buildings were devastated. The once thriving metropolis was reduced to rubble in an instant, as if a huge hand wiped it away in anger. The flood's aftermath was disastrous. People were left hunting for loved ones and attempting to rebuild their lives in the rubble of a city. It was a typical day in the quiet neighborhood with families going about their usual activities. But then, a massive torrent swept through, its roar shaking the ground and changing everything in its path. The flood was so powerful that it swept away 2 large houses in a matter of minutes. The once proud structures were washed away by the relentless surge, their foundations giving way. The roar of the water drowned out all the other noise, making the deluge sound overwhelming. As the water washed over them, the houses fell, leaving nothing but wreckage in its wake. The families inside had no time to respond, no chance to flee the flood. They were swept away in its flood, lost in its depths. The waves were massive, towering over everything in their path. One of the homes by the river was quickly surrounded by the surging water. The man standing on the house's balcony was terrified as he watched the waves close in. The house began to tilt to one side as the water continued to rise until finally it could no longer withstand the pressure. The man was helpless as the house crumbled and collapsed, swallowed by the raging water. The man was lost in the flood, swept away in its surge. His family and friends would never forget the look of terror on his face as he was consumed by the water. A devastating flood hit the town, tearing down everything in its path. The water was relentless, rising higher and higher until it reached the grand house on the outskirts of town. The house was no match for the power of the flood. In a matter of moments, it was swallowed by the water, disappeared from sight. The family who lived there had just enough time to evacuate, but they were left with nothing but memories. The home where they had made so many memories, where they had laughed and loved, was gone in an instant. The noise was deafening, echoing across the streets. The flood had arrived, ripping through the side wall of a home and bursting with power. The trapped family inside had little time to flee as the water rose and the house began to quake. A deluge engulfed the house in a matter of seconds. The family, their possessions, and the memories they had created inside all vanished with a roar into the black depths of the water. It was a spectacle of devastation and destruction, with the sheer power of the flood astounding all who watched it. From the power of the surging waves to the sheer force of the raging water, these floods serve as a reminder of the unpredictable and awe-inspiring power of nature. We hope you enjoyed this journey with us and learned something new along the way. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more exciting videos.